we now have about 50 minutes for questions. I've already got a lot stacked up, so I'm going to go straight into the question and answer session. Again, if I could ask you to be as concise as possible in your comments and as concise as possible also in the questions that you want to ask. I prefer questions to comments, but I will take both. So I will invite, first of all, the first question from Abdullah Hamid from Saudi Arabia. So.
Thank you so much. Dr. Ahmed, قلت إنه اللحظة لم تحن.
You said that it's not the time for the negotiations regarding having like a security structure. So why it's not the time for this? Because according to the situation that we are living in this region, the other thing is that the principle of Obama and some of the points that were mentioned, he was proposing the equation of a cold peace between Iran and the kingdom and the other Arab countries. What do you think as for this as an equation or a solution for the current crisis between Iran and the Gulf countries? Thank you very much. Shukran.
Question was one I was going to ask if nobody else did. On which note, I'd like to invite Ali Fathallah Najed from Iran to ask the next question.
Hello. I'm on the Iranian delegation list again, although I'm coming from Berlin anyways. So I welcome the decision or the interest in creating a regional security architecture, obviously, in an inclusive way. My question would be directed to His Excellency from the Secretary General of the Arab League. Given the antagonisms within the region, whom would you accept as an outside mediator, be it Western or Eastern? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I like the way these questions are being asked very concisely. I would now like to ask Dr. Hashim Al-Hassani from Iraq to ask his question.
Well, it's a comment and a question.
Comment and a question. That's fine,
Hashim.
His Excellency, the General Secretary of the Arab League, talked about the Arabic system, the Arab system. We think that the Arab system now is collapsing after the invasion of Kuwait. It was the beginning of the Arab system collapse. And it was followed by the invasion of Iraq. And the two invasions, these two invasions, there was no post-invasion or post-war. There was no thinking to the post-war stage. One of the idiot invasion in 1991 and the other invasion that was followed, it came to change, but they didn't have any plan in this for the post of the war changing. Everything is totally different. Now we have like an aspects like patterns in the region. Most of the Arab countries is now going around within the circles and not others around the Arab core. Now there is the core, which is the Iranian core, that King Abdullah II took a long time ago, and he named it as the Shiite cross or crescent. This is starting to be formed, and it was also a test, an expansion to this like Russia, and also the Gulf core that started again to strengthen themselves and reforming themselves regarding all these consequences that was a result from these two cores or aspects. And there is also other additional points to the Gulf core with the supporter by the American European side, and there is also other cores, the Turkish core or aspect that is forming undercover, and also the Israeli aspect or core that is forming now in a specific way. We don't know how, and maybe all these cores will be overlapped together or meet in one way that can cause other consequences later on in the region. I'm saying that the Arab world needs to look for common points to try to form the core, or that will be relevant and for their interest. That's what we are in need as a program, an economic educational program that can enable us to gather all the people of the Arab world and push them to the development lane. I don't know if the General Secretary for the Arab League agree with me in this analysis, or does he have like other comments, and how can he see that the Arab League can play a role, a positive role in the future Arab stage? Thank you.
Questions, and I'll come back to the panel. I'd like to invite my old friend Falah Mustafa Bakir from Iraq to ask a question or make his comment.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. In fact, I would like to give a Kurdish version in the Arab world and also in the Middle East region. I believe since we have failed in the past experiences, it would be good to come up with a new vision and new approach in addressing the challenges that we face. Because if we want to address stability, we have to be realistic in addressing these challenges that we face and to find proper solutions for them. We have to consolidate democracy and also spread awareness about the practice of democracy, not only the concept of democracy. Because without having democracy, I don't believe we would be able to see decentralization. Decentralization would have no meaning without ensuring a proper democratic culture and practice. I would be also interested in His Excellency, the Secretary General of Arab Leagues, reading and position vis-a-vis the Kurdish question, be that in Iraq, as we are from Kurdistan region of Iraq, but also towards the Kurdish question in the Middle East, because a nation of 40 million does have presence in the Middle East. Without solving that problem also, we do not think there would be stability in the Middle East. Another question about changing the borders and the aftermath of Sykes-Picot. Why should we see the borders as something sacred that we should not touch them, since we have not been able to find stability, prosperity, and peaceful coexistence with insisting on installing these borders? And we have to be careful about sovereignty as well, insisting on sovereignty. We go back to 2 decades ago when the Kurdish people were suffering, they were chemically gassed. That issue was considered as an internal matter of Iraq, and therefore there was no international intervention because of the sovereignty of Iraq. So therefore we have to be flexible in admitting the nature of the problems and coming up with a new vision to solve them. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Falah. I can see this is going to be a lively session. One last question from one of my former bosses, Alistair Burt.
Thank you, JJ. I've been impressed with the number of times that the issue between Israel and Palestine has been raised during the week as a mention in people's speeches, but I've got no sense of real drive or determination to see a solution to this, either to reconcile the issues within Palestinian politics, which is a vital step, or to seriously take on the issue of driving forward the Middle East peace process during a period when it's relatively quiet between Israel and the Palestinians, with the fear that if it's just left, something kinetic will happen again, and because of everything that's happening in the region, it may yet be even worse. Could I ask His Excellency, the Secretary General, does he detect a real drive and a real determination to do anything more than just pay lip service to this issue, but actually to try and motivate people to get something done?
Good, thank you. I think we'll pause there, and I'll give the panelists a chance to respond. Dr. Ahmed, perhaps you would like to start.
Yes. A question, why is it not opportune, the moment is not opportune for a new security arrangement in the Middle East? When we have major units in Al-Mashriq, Syria, for instance, or Iraq. Syria has been destroyed. when we have a failing state in Libya, when we see that Iraq is facing difficulties, real difficulties, and a civil war across the area from the Iranian-Iraqi borders up to the Mediterranean. Well, the Arabs, I think, are in a weak point. And why would they enter into arrangements with the Iranians or the Turks or even the Israelis when Israel is still occupying Palestinian territories and claiming that it has to be part and parcel of whatever arrangements that would take place in future years. So it is only natural that I do not feel really eager to reach that point. President Obama's advice to Gulf countries, Arab Gulf countries, proceed to establish a cold or a kind of a relationship with the Iranians. Iran has to change first its conduct in relation to, or behavior in relation to the region in order to open up channels of understanding. The question from our Iranian colleague, we have arrangements right now between Western powers and Gulf countries. I think these are enough for the time being to create that kind of balance till we, Arab countries and the Arab League, are in a point, or we reach that point where we can create that balance. The Arab League is not engaged in a number of regional problems. It has been put aside. And in Syria, the Arab League is not there. In Libya, lately we started emphasizing ourselves on the scene. The comment on the invasion of Kuwait and Iraq, and that there has to be a comprehensive program of building up potential in Arab countries through the Arab League, I fully agree with that. But the important thing is that it finds reflections in behavior of member states of the Arab League themselves in order to show determination that, yes, we will stand our ground and we will bring back the core to the Arab system that has been shaken since the Iraq's invasion of Kuwait. Mr. Salah Bakir, I fully agree with you, and because of this I say the national state, but the rule of law. Because without the rule of law, you will have a repetition of what had happened over the last 20 years in a number of Arab countries. Why the borders are sacred? Just try to play games with the borders and you will have continuous war, because nobody would accept a change of his borders. And the First and Second World Wars are a manifestation of what I'm talking about. Sovereignty. Without respect of sovereignty, the eagerness to intervene in other people's affairs will be dominating the scene, and we should not allow it. Interventions have to emanate from a certain authority, a global authority embodied in the Security Council of the United Nations. In the absence of this, there should not be intervention. The question in relation to the Kurds. Of course, the Kurds are a nation of their own, but they happen to be divided amongst 3 or even more, 4 or 5 nation states. They have their own rights and their own hope for their future. But my advice is live within nation states, but acquire all the rights of real citizens of such nation states. The question in relation to the peace process and the Israel and Palestine. The problem I detect is that I think the Israelis today are living what they think is their eternal honeymoon, or in paradise. Why is it so? They see countries like Syria, as we see all what is happening in Syria, in Iraq, in Libya, the difficulties of other Arab countries, the focus on Iran, rightly. If I was in his place, as I see how he is behaving, I'm talking about Prime Minister Netanyahu, he says, I want tomorrow to see Abu Mazen. Actually, he will meet him and he will tell him, well, I will continue settling your territory and taking over what is considered yours, and do whatever you can do against me. You do not have the support from Arab or international community. Sadly, we have to reverse this. Because of that, I'm a great supporter of whatever that international community, Security Council, French, Americans, whoever, is to do in order to activate the process and to bring real process to the game. The problem is Israel. They do not want to negotiate. They continue that track, then the idea of the two-state solution will just disappear. And the Israelis, they think that after 100 years of conflict, they can continue for another 100 years subduing Palestinians while Arabs are divided. It cannot continue. It has to be changed.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed. Sartaj. I'm interested in your views, particularly on Iran, actually. So Iran was one of the issues that was raised. Pakistan, of course, has its own relationship with Iran, partly out of geography, out of economics, trade links, politics, and so forth, and also with Saudi Arabia, of course.
Well, the present tension between Iran and Saudi Arabia is extremely worrisome because it has created very new problems for both sides. I think it's very important to find some way to restore communications, because any problem in which there is no dialogue and no communication, and if it's not possible at the official level, at least at the informal level, there should be some communication. proposal about facilitators or arbitrators, again, the so-called outside forces or powers should be such who do not have their own interests in the matter. If you have people, as you have seen in many other cases, then outsiders begin their proxy wars in an area and it becomes much worse. So United Nations and other sort of disinterested states could, and in our case, I think OIC has a number of countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, Turkey, Pakistan, who are probably in a position to play some role in bringing these together. So I do hope that some way would be find, first to restore communication and then find means of coexistence, if not friendship.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go another round of questions. Again, I have a lot of people who want to speak, so if you can be concise as possible. I think I will start with Krishna Nair from India. This is not, sorry,
I have a question for Mr. Sartaj Aziz. You referred to the security situation in South Asia very gracefully without mentioning India or dragging the India-Pakistan dispute to this floor, which is unfortunately the norm at multilateral fora these days. My question to you is, what is the impact that the rising tensions between India and Pakistan are having on the Gulf? After Narendra Modi became Prime Minister, India has been engaged in a very intense diplomatic and economic push in the Gulf, which means that the security situation in South Asia, the tensions between India and Pakistan are bound to have a greater impact on the Gulf than at any time before. So what, in your opinion, is the impact this is having? And secondly, with the stake from the Gulf increasing in India, Pakistan already has very good relations with the Gulf states. The relations between Gulf states and India are improving now. Would Pakistan accept any mediation from the Gulf in the dispute with India? And what are the prospects of any such mediation succeeding in reducing tensions in South Asia?
Thank you very much, Krishna. We had an exchange yesterday, of course, on China and Japan. So we are truly becoming a global conference here in Manama. I will take another couple of questions while Sartaj is thinking about how to answer that question. Ali Mubayed from Lebanon, and of course now also IISS.
Thank you, JJ. I would like to, as an economist, focus on what Mr. Abul-Gheit and Mr. Aziz mentioned. Mr. Abul-Gheit, about the socioeconomic challenges that the region faces, and not as a result per se of conflict. And I would think that this is what Mr. Abul-Gheit was meaning when he said that we need a Marshall Plan for $10 billion, but more so as a real driver for economic and political risk in the region today, and particularly if we look at it in terms of what it has achieved in terms of trade and financial integration with the rest of the world, and or how badly it is performing vis-a-vis other emerging markets. My question to Mr. Abul-Gheit is what would be, in your view, a revitalized, basically, economic regional economic cooperation? Don't we need to rethink our failed trade integration, the inefficiency of the aid arrangements within the region, the lack of increasing integration with India, Pakistan, as we heard, which are becoming important important economic partners for the region, but also more importantly, a rethinking of the economic models, particularly when the main donors and financiers of the region are themselves, and here I mean the GCC countries, are themselves facing immense challenges to their economic models, but also undertaking very ambitious and promising reforms. And my question to Mr. Aziz is, as a representative of Pakistan, and you mentioned that 2/4 of your labor is stationed in the GCC and 3/4 of total remittances comes from the region. Obviously, the GCC countries will undergo a major reshuffle of their labor and migration policies as they go through the process of adjustment to a lower for longer oil prices. How is Pakistan looking at potentially a reversal of the labor flows once these policies start setting pace?
Thanks very much, Alex. A fantastic set of geoeconomic questions, which are very important in this context. I will take a question from Hee-seok Kwon from Korea.
Thank you, JJ. For Ambassador Aziz of Pakistan, I noted the Pakistani role and efforts in bringing peace to Afghanistan and in fostering the regional security architecture. Given the geopolitical context Pakistan lies in, Pakistan is surrounded by several attempts or existing mechanisms, attempts to create regional security architecture. As we are discussing the Middle Eastern security framework, and Pakistan is also facing in the East the ARF already existing in discussing Southeast Asian security. And in the South Asian region, they have a SARC, which has not evolved into the full-fledged security architecture. And Ambassador Aziz discussed potential joining the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So as Pakistan is faced with several dimensions, which way is the priority from the Pakistani perspective? For Ambassador Abul-Gheit of the Arab League, together with the GCC and other regional organizations, have been playing an important role in fostering security in the region. But now the core of the Middle Eastern security challenges lie around the Iranian challenge. So that's the reason why we are discussing the potential establishment of a sub-regional security architecture involving GCC, Iraq, potentially Iran, even Yemen. So to do that, I think we need to learn from the lessons, successful lessons from the other region, which is Europe. The key to the European success in the establishment of regional security architecture, namely CSCE or OSCE, lies in two important points. Number one, during that time when it was created, there was a broader detente between the United States and the Soviet Union. I'm talking about the early 60s through early 70s. Number two, on a subset level, reconciliation between the main adversaries of Europe by the time, between the two Germanys. So there was a breakthrough thanks to Willy Brandt's Ostpolitik during that time. So if we would apply the European experiences for the creation of a regional security architecture here, we need to secure the Saudi-Iran rapprochement together with perhaps the Bahraini and UAE reconciliation with Iran. And either side should take a unilateral, bold initiative to trigger a dialogue process toward that direction, and the vision and will of political leaders are essential in this regard. So we yesterday talked about the lack of trust on both sides, but mutual distrust could be reduced by deepening economic integration and people-to-people exchange.
Is there a question?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll take another couple of questions. I'll take one from Nadeem Zahawi from the UK. I suspect the only boundaries, Nadeem is interested in changing our constituency boundaries in the UK.
Thank you, JJ. Well, for me, the theme of this conference has been
leadership and honesty, as the Foreign Minister of Bahrain so refreshingly spoke in here, and of course Ursula von der Leyen as well. So maybe we need a little bit of honesty here as well. Otherwise, the danger is that us political elites have a very different view to what is happening on the ground. And I'd just like to pick up on the Secretary General of the Arab League in terms of Sykes-Picot. Would it not be a danger that we have tin ears to what is actually happening on the ground in Syria and Iraq, and actually end up exacerbating the situation without addressing it properly? Sir, you spoke about no examples of borders changing, but of course the Czechs and the Slovaks would disagree with you on that, and indeed in the EU as a whole, you know, the Brexit vote in the UK, devolution that David Cameron led in the UK, and of course, you know, Tony Blair, to be fair, led on that, and we carried it on under the coalition government and so on. And so there is a danger that the political elites end up being in a very different place to the populations on the ground. My question to you, sir, because you also spoke about, or you lamented the fact that you were never involved in Syria in the first place, is maybe sometimes we ought to look at our own structures to see whether you can enhance that. And can the Arab League, for example, restructure itself so it has real teeth, so that it does become a key player in some of these big decisions? Otherwise, we just become a talking shop.
Okay, thanks very much. I'll take one more question from Dr. Ibtisam Al-Ketbi from the UAE.
Thank you, John. سؤالي موجه لمعالي الأمين العام للجامعة العربية. تبدو الشروط التي ذكرتها لتحقق النظام الأمني الإقليمي الجديد محكمة، ولكن تظل نظرية في ظل يعني عجز الجامعة العربية. الجامعة العربية
is incapable as an organization, cannot provide solutions for the Arab causes. What does the Arab League have to institutionalize such a new regional security system in facing the new geopolitical situations by Iran and Turkey in the region, and also as we see the scattering of the Arab states? My question to His Excellency Sir Sartaj Aziz: how does Pakistan look to its relationships with the GCC countries compared to relationship to Iran, as it refuses to participate in the coalition forces in Yemen? شكرا. أتود نعم أن قضية
within the Arab League and the Arab area. There is an effort there, but sadly it didn't yet achieve what we aspire for. There is continuous discussion on the establishment of a great free zone or area for trade. But still, member states are not showing the needed eagerness to achieve the objective. The region doesn't need only the 10 billion of the Marshall Plan in 1948 or 49. The region needs, in my opinion, hundreds of billions of dollars for the rebuilding, as well as the building up the potential of that region. What we promise is we will keep pushing within the League to achieve whatever that is aspired for. When I assumed my responsibilities 5 months ago, I noticed that the political aspect was stagnant, was dormant. Why is it so? Because the League has been put aside in all the regional issues, or most of the regional issues, short of the Palestinian problem. So the focus, I think, is work to build up economic as well as social and cultural exchanges amongst Arab countries. And this is what we will try to do in the future. The question from our colleague from Korea. You cannot, in my opinion, divide the Arab world or the security of the Arab world into solely cooperation between Gulf, Iraq, and Yemen and leave the rest. Or else they would establish their own Arab League, and that is not functional. The cooperation that had been achieved in Europe through the Helsinki process, CSCE. CSCE or Helsinki, if it would have been proposed in 1945 or 1955 or 1965, 30 years, 20 years, 30 years after the end of the war, it wouldn't have worked. The Middle East is facing occupation by the Israelis and threats from Iran. So we have to pacify first the region. We have to establish the fact that the Israelis are to withdraw from Palestinian territory and a Palestinian state is to emerge. And then we start talking about the possibility of cooperation and mutual security. This is at least what I... Sykes-Picot. Sykes-Picot established certain form. We, in our schools, objected to that form then. But what we insist, or at least I insist, is to, if we have to establish our own Sykes-Picot, it has to be through us and our decisions, and not to be established for us in the Arab world. But the danger is the stage of political and social development of our region compared to Czechia and Slovakia. In Czechia and Slovakia, they passed through, as I venture to say, the killing fields of the Second World War. Arab countries are not yet as developed as a peaceful divorce. It will not be a peaceful divorce, and we are witnessing it in Syria. So, better to maintain the borders. What the Arab League have in relation to the threats coming from Turkey and Iran, as well as Israel, we have the Arab will. And we have to insist that we have a will to resist and a will to confront and to build cooperation. And whatever collective security regime that would emerge in the future, in a decade or less, or even more, it has to evolve around Arab will. In the absence of that, we will be defeated, and we will never be defeated, never to be defeated. This is an Arab region, from Agadir in the west to Oman in the east. It is one unit, and it will defend itself, cooperating with whoever offers cooperation. I think I answered all the questions. Yes.
Thank you very much. Sartaj.
Well, there are about 5 questions. I'll deal with them very briefly because I can't do justice to all of them. First of all, as Krishna said, I had avoided mention of India-Pakistan tensions deliberately, but this question forces me to talk about them. You see, it's very unfortunate that these relationships are at strain right now because both the countries have a very serious problem of development and poverty. And we should therefore be spending our resources. And our Prime Minister's policy is a peaceful neighborhood so that we can devote our resources and attention to development and to poverty reduction. But in the last three years, ever since Prime Minister Modi has come, our dialogue is suspended. And when two countries have problems, they have to have dialogue. And if you have dialogue, then those problems that you can solve, you deal with, and the relationship move on. But the sort of attitude that we'll discuss only on our terms and not across the board is creating these tensions. And we are doing our best to diffuse this situation because once you get onto the escalation ladder, then where do you stop? So the international community is also urging India to engage in a comprehensive dialogue where issues can be addressed. So that is the priority. But the other question related is, what does these tensions mean for the Gulf region? You see, Pakistan, and along with Afghanistan, are situated in the middle of South Asia on the one hand, Central Asia and West Asia. So it's a very geographically remarkable geostrategic location. And if the relationships are okay, then this connectivity both in energy and trade and transport can be an enormous potential benefit. But unfortunately, because of these tensions, the transit through Pakistan of India either to Afghanistan or to Central Asia or to the Gulf is right now restricted. And we have been in the past working on transit trade agreements, road connectivity, rail connectivity, and a number of... We have started connecting to Central Asia. We have energy connectivity with Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. We have Tapi gas pipeline with Turkmenistan. We are also discussing a number of other such projects. But I think if India and Pakistan relations become normal and these regions are connected, it has enormous growth potential. As I mentioned in our speech, China-Pakistan connectivity will also connect to South Asia once the relationship become all right. So I hope everybody will urge India to not insist on what I call a relationship of what we perceive to be hegemony, but have a relationship of dignity, respecting sovereignty and equality. The third question is between ARF, SARC and SCO, what are Pakistan's preferences or priorities? I think SARC is affected by India-Pakistan relations right now, and it is not moving much progress. In fact, the SARC summit, which was supposed to be held in Islamabad in November, was postponed at India's behest, persuading some other countries that we are facing terrorism, so we can't have SARC summit. Although summits are a very good occasion for countries to shake hands and try to resolve differences. And also to use bilateral differences to scuttle a multilateral forum is also very unfortunate. That's why, to prove that we don't do such things, I went to the Heart of Asia conference in Amritsar recently, because I think it's important. So, but ARF we are enacting much more closely because we want to expand our trade with ASEAN countries and that part. And SCO is slightly more than trade and economic relations. It has this limited security architecture, it is an anti-terrorism architecture, anti-drug, and it's evolving into an important forum as we go along. And this year, next year, India and Pakistan will both become members. So it does require that all the members of SCO have good relations among themselves. So I hope this will be one outcome of SCO. So I think these relationships are not mutually exclusive. The more economic links you have, both to East and West, the better it is. The final question is about Pakistan relation with Iran and why we did not participate in the coalition operations in Yemen. As some of you are aware, We have, of course, excellent relations with Saudi Arabia and the Gulf countries, which are far more. With Iran, we do have, because it's our next door neighbor, continuing economic and other relationship. And also, about 20% of our population is Shia. So we don't want the tension between Iran and Saudi Arabia to spill over into Shia-Sunni tensions within Pakistan. So we are handling this relationship very delicately so that we do not take any view which is unbalanced or one-sided, so that we do not have that problem. In the case of the operation in Yemen, which started in March 2015, first of all, we had very heavy involvement in our own counter-terrorism operation in tribal area. But more significantly, in the light of what we have experienced in the last 20 years, particularly after 9/11 and the Afghan war, as a policy, we have decided not to interfere in other people's wars and protect our own security, develop our own economy, and then later on we'll see. So this coincided with that phase. Thirdly, I think our assessment was that any intervention from outside, in the absence of a UN resolution, in a civil war situation with sectarian dimensions, is not a very good venture. And as experience has proved in the last 1.5 years, that intervention has not yielded results. So I think our policy it was not a policy of neutrality, it was a more balanced policy and more concerned with our own security. And I hope people will understand, because our commitment to defense, come to the defense of Saudi Arabia, and our defense cooperation with all the GCC countries, whether it is training, whether it is manpower, whether it is other, remains uncommitted, but not in terms of involving our troops in places like Syria and Yemen.
Okay. Thank you very much. That is a very full and frank answer. We have about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to take a maximum of 5 questions, because I have to give my panelists a chance to respond to those. So if you could please be as brief as possible, preferably well below 1 minute. And I'm going to ask, first of all, Ambassador Hatun Demirel, who is the Turkish ambassador to Manama, to ask her question.
Thank you so much, JJ. My question is to His Excellency Abul-Gheit. Turkey and Arab League had a very well-established mechanism, and we had very active meetings. But due to the developments lately, we don't see this dynamism anymore. And Turkey is a major part of this security architecture of this region. Along with some other regional countries, of course, it is a non-Arabic country, and we are categorized time to time non-Arabic countries, and it is highlighted with some other connotations. But Turkey currently hosts 3 million Syrians who are Arabs. And although Turkey is a non-Arabic country, we are a part of Syrian trouble, and hosting 3 million Syrian Arabs. So can we expect some more dynamism about the relations between Turkey and Arab League, which I see very, very important, because this region belongs to all of us, and the solution will come from us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Professor Dalawa, let me just...
Thank you. Well, I wish I had time to bombard Mr. Abul-Gheit with questions so that I can understand the relevance and the vision of the Arab League now. I know Mr. Abul-Gheit is a strong advocate of Arab nation-state building, and he's now just indicated that he would advise minorities to fight for their rights within these nation states. But I would like to ask that if you look back at the 100 years of post-Sykes-Picot, where do you find relatively successful or truly successful nation-state, Arab nation-state building, where everybody, including Arabs themselves and minorities, prospered, were free, that they actually felt their citizenship and loyalty to the state, where they felt and enjoyed good governance and rule of law. And more importantly, since the invasion of Kuwait and later of Iraq, all these last 25 to 30 years, what were the biggest achievements of the Arab League? And if you look back at such history, what gives you optimism about the future, where if you revive the Arab state or nation-state building, that this is going to work? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Florence Gaub from Germany.
My question is for Mr. Abul-Gheit. We complain a lot about the fact that the Arab space is not as integrated as it should be, but I think in many sad ways it is actually integrated in a, if you want, an involuntary Schengen of weapons and fighters and ideologies that move freely around the region. So my question to you is, what stands very, very concretely in the way of targeted cooperation amongst Arab states on these very specific areas of border control, information sharing, and so forth? Because these are the issues that would actually strengthen the sovereignty that you've mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Al-Badr Abu Bakr al-Shatri from the UAE.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I just have a quick question for His Excellency, the Secretary General of the Arab League, and I'm going to ask him in Arabic.
My question for Your Excellency is, what about restoring the Arab security regional systems in light of, I think it's the right time within this strategic harmony among all these Arab states and regions, and also the new presidents for the White House will have the support for this, that there is some countries will support and establish their security region and with a partnership with other countries. Under the light of this isolation that new elected President Trump is calling for, maybe it's a time for restoring these systems. For this system, my last question to Aziz, as it was asked by our colleague Ibtisam Al-Kadbi about missing the opportunity. كان هناك فرصة لباكستان
15 to influence the Middle East region and play more role in the campaign for liberating Yemen. But now that it missed that opportunity, what will be the anchor from which Pakistan can re-engage in the Middle East to protect the interests you enlisted, including, the expats in the Gulf states and the remittances and the investment and the economic relations? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. One more question, very short, and then I will turn to the panel. And I will give this to Cesar Guedes from international organizations.
Yes, I am Cesar Guedes from UNODC, the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, and I think it's important to highlight in this dialogue the fantastic role that Pakistan is doing on combating illicit drugs, especially the drugs coming from, the opiates coming from Afghanistan. It's every year for the last 5 years, increasing the seizure and destruction in around 20% each year. So that's commendable, and I think that contributes very much towards the global security, but also towards the regional security in the Gulf, and as well as West and Central Asia. That's my comment. Thanks.
Thank you very much. That's fantastic. I apologize to those whom I've not been able to call. It's just a function of time. I'm now going to give our panelists a chance to reply. Maybe I will start with Sartaj and then give Ambassador Ahmed Abul-Gheit the last word, if that's okay. Sartaj.
Well, I think the question of the role, the earlier question also came. The reduction in manpower requirements is not going to be as significant because the nature of the people required will change in time. And I think in that, to that extent, I think it's not, we do not consider that a major problem because the cooperation in terms of expanding trade or expanding investment remains very strong. And I think there's a lot of complementarity between South Asian economies, which include both India and Pakistan, and the Gulf remains very strong, and I hope we'll benefit. And as I mentioned earlier, as this region opens between China and Central Asia, that will provide additional opportunities. As I mentioned, the route that is open through the Pakistani port of Gwadar is a very economical route for doing exporting oil and other goods to China. So in that extent, I think our complementarities remain. I think the question asked about how do we re-engage, I think we are already engaged, we never disengaged. I think our role in sharing our experience in counterterrorism has become more important now that it's become a bigger menace. And our role in training the armed forces, I think we have very good defense cooperation with almost all. We have almost 10,000 security personnel in Bahrain, for example. And we have about more than, I think, several thousand people in Saudi Arabia on regular training missions. And we are now, of course, having similar relations with the Air Force and the Navy. So I think our defense cooperation will remain strong because it does need the whole issue of strategic imbalances create their own problems. And I think developing that capacity remains very, very important. So I think in these areas, our engagements will continue to increase apart from control of drug trafficking, which has just been mentioned.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
أمامي دقيقة و45 ثانية عشان أجاوب على
I control this. This is my...
You control it then
I
very well. بالنسبة للزميلة سفيرة تركيا.
The Turkish ambassador to Manama, yes. First, yes, Turkey is very dear for Arab countries and for the Arab League. And Turkey is an Islamic neighbor country and has all due respect with the relationship between Arab and Turkey, for sure. And we have no doubt in this. The point is during the last 3 years, it was clear that the positions were not clear between with one or two countries that have influence in the Arab League. So the Council of the Arab Leagues, the Ministerial Council, had taken a decision. I don't say to suspend, but to cool down the path of the Arab-Turkish cooperation, which was very huge in the political, economical track. There was an Arab-Turkish forum that used to meet once every year, whether in one Arab state or either in Istanbul. And I hope that the Arab League Council may decide in the appropriate time when situations change and the relationship between Turkey and one country or other country. We hope that we'll once again activate that relationship, which is very important. There is debate and there were decisions taken the first time. Yes, we know that Turkey hosts 3 million Syrian refugees, and this is a very good approach, and we hope that it continues to facilitate their life. But on the other side, there is a decision issued by the Arab League, also on the ministerial level or in the summit level in Mauritania, that there is a call that Turkey should withdraw its forces from the north region of Iraq. It's a very complicated issue between the neighboring countries, Arab neighboring countries to Turkey. The question, where are the success examples of the Arab League, of multifaceted state in the Arab world? This is the core issue. that there are Arab regimes during the 50 or 60 years had committed crimes for their societies. If before the Ba'ath Party emerged in Syria and Iraq, there was a consensus in all those societies. They didn't witness such severe conditions that we witnessed afterwards. What we say that the examples existed, but the mistakes of the regimes had led us to what we have reached. So once again, I say the governance, good governance, rule of law, democracy, participation, accepting the pluralism, and to a consensus, and to change the religious speech. All these elements will provide satisfaction among these societies. If we don't achieve such, the disease will continue affecting these societies. What are the examples of cooperation between Arab countries? Who follows the work the work of the Arab League, such myself? Every day I notice tens of meetings that are held at the premises of the Arab League that seek to talk, to coordinate between Arab states in everything. For instance, the UN announces sustainable development and the 2030 environment. The Arab League conducts huge work in compiling visions, Arab visions, and to exchange ideas and to bring the Arabs on certain positions that will be referred to the international community in all levels. The customs tariffs, customs sheets, taxes, the diseases, childhood, maternity, the role of women in the legislations of child and education, any field that you may think that there exists in the United Nations, and it's there, and the international community works, we find it in the Arab League. Therefore, this is the key, to coordinate among Arabs in all levels. If we don't find the political consensus. And the last question regarding the strategic dialogue between, of course, this is the key of the problem. We need this dialogue, and the dialogue exists, and we need the consensus. And there are meetings and there are retreats held by Arab ministers, and the summits are held with the participation of leaders. But recently they have become a formal issue. What we want is to have informal dialogue among leaders, among ministers of foreign affairs, among the ambassadors. We shouldn't forget that there on the international level, ambassadors meet in all over to coordinate the Arab world into dealing with the country that they work for. This is the issue for ministers. And on the 20th of December, there will be a European Arab meeting. Ministers of foreign affairs from the EU will meet ministers from the Arab countries. There are dialogues with China, India, and others. Also, there was a meeting with Turkey, as I mentioned. So we try to create this. I believe in this level we achieve a lot of goals. Thank you very much.
Me to say a few closing words. First of all, thank you very much to our distinguished guests on the panel for their extraordinary contribution to this debate, which has been very full and again extremely rich. Let me also thank the Kingdom of Bahrain for its support to this Manama dialogue. My sincere thanks and those of John Chipman and the rest of the IISS, to His Majesty, to His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, His Excellency, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and all the agencies of the Bahraini government, and indeed the Bahraini people as a whole, for their support for and interest in this Manama dialogue process. The plenary presentations we have had this year on US policy in the Middle East, regional powers and Middle East stability, combating extremism in the Middle East and beyond, and the widening of Middle Eastern security partnerships and the discussions that followed were, I thought, of immense quality. The detailed debates on Yemen, which I chaired this morning, international cooperation on terrorism, Syria, and defense cooperation in the region were also first class. And as usual, government ministers, military and intelligence professionals had several opportunities for bilateral meetings on the margins of the discussions and have found ways to enhance cooperation and discuss policy options. So tomorrow we will begin our campaign to convene the best ever Manama dialogue in 2017, and we hope before the end of the year to confirm to all of you the exact dates of our summit next year. And that campaign will include at least 4 elements. First, more visits by the IISS leadership to the GCC countries and the other states in the Middle East who are normally represented or need to be represented at this summit to consult on the topics that we will discuss. We will encourage ministerial-led delegations and inspire the use of the Manama dialogue for effective diplomacy and even as an action-forcing event for strengthened international cooperation on conflict resolution. The Manama dialogue is at the service of the countries and citizens in attendance, and we at the IISS will do everything we can to facilitate diplomatic contacts and to help join excellent analysis to sound policy making. Second, we will find ways to conduct small intercessional or Sherpa meetings in preparation for the Manama dialogue next year, to tie in senior officials and analysts from the participating countries into the Manama dialogue process. And such meetings will help us to maintain the momentum of the dialogue and engage governments and policy analysts in shaping the agenda. Third, we will redouble our efforts to enhance policy-relevant research to support policy options that will be discussed here. We note with pleasure, for example, that an important element of the speech of the US Defense Secretary, Ash Carter, yesterday was his call for enhanced missile defense cooperation in the region, a call that was made on exactly the same day as we released here our own independent study of how the countries of the GCC might construct a stronger missile defense architecture. Our work in the coming years on combating extremism, regional conflict, the growing role of Asian powers in Gulf security and the regional security architecture will help to inform the discussion at the Manama dialogue in 2017. Fourth and lastly, several speakers at this summit have noted the importance of education and the need to conduct dialogue between this region and others to improve cultural understanding. Engaging the younger generation must be an important part of the Manama dialogue. We will do our best to add young leaders and successor generation element to the participation and will work tirelessly to identify the youth, especially from the region, whom we can invite as delegates next year and ensure that they are part of the program. That doesn't, of course, exclude old people from me from taking part in the dialogue as well. So we look forward to discussing how cultural exchange and diplomacy can be appended to our Manama dialogue efforts and to the work that we, the IISS, do in and with this region. The Manama dialogue remains a unique instrument to bring the voices of the Middle East into the international strategic debate and to have leaders and analysts from North America, Europe, and Asia take the temperature and feel the pulse of this region's politics and diplomacy. So with thanks again to Sartaj Aziz and Ambassador Ahmed Abul-Gheit, the Secretary General of the Arab League, I thank you all for your attendance, wish you safe travels, and hope to see you next year. Thank you very much. Ahmed, thank you.